December 2015. Trump was leading in the Republican race. A lot of Republicans were thinking he might be able to win, but the general public and the liberal press was kind of viewing this as kind of a freak show on the Republican side. And they thought, well, even if Trump could win the nomination, of course, Hillary Clinton would defeat Trump in a general election. I mean, there's no danger that he would actually become president. So there wasn't that degree of worry. Now you see Trump 10 miles ahead in the Republican race, and you see polls showing Trump beating Biden. I think you put those together, and that accounts for this major nervous breakdown we've seen in the liberal world in the past week or two.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with Chief Political Correspondent Byron York. Byron, we had the fourth Republican debate last night at the time of this taping. Were there any winners and losers in your eyes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Ron DeSantis did the best that he's done in any of those. I thought Nikki Haley was not as good as she had done in the first three debates, but the debates have been her vehicle for rising up in the race, starting with the August 23rd debate in Milwaukee. You know, Vivek Ramaswamy just wants everybody to hate him. You know, I watched the debate, and for about the first 20 minutes, I think Ramaswamy is kind of amusing and interesting, and then by the end of the debate, I'm totally sick of him. You know, so I think I'm probably a fairly common viewer, and Chris Christie does what he does, and he's going to do it until people start voting, and then he'll drop out. I think the interesting thing here is, are there going to be any more? Because we just had the debate. It was on December the 6th. The Iowa caucuses are January the 15th. If there were going to be a debate in Iowa, and there usually is, we ought to know about it by now, and we don't. And there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes about the RNC, whether they're going to do any more debates. It appears that they might not, and whether they will lift their ban on candidates being in other people's debates. You know, and in the past, if a candidate said, well, I want to do a debate that's being put on by the Washington Examiner, they would say, nope, if you do that, you're out of the race. So they lift that exclusion, and maybe somebody else does a debate. But I had thought that the next real chance for Donald Trump to actually take part in a debate would be if there were one in Iowa. Would he do that, you know, maybe 5 days before the caucuses? Would he actually take part in that? He may not even have to make that choice, but I think you can say that his decision to skip the first four has been pretty successful for him.
So with Iowa so close and the dynamics having been so static this entire time, is there a chance we see some sort of upset in Iowa? Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it's possible. I was just talking to a pretty influential person in Iowa who thinks there's a real chance that could happen. Because, you know, the polls and caucus results can differ because people do have to leave their home on a, you know, is it a Monday night or Tuesday night, and the 15th of January, and you know, it's cold, they have to go somewhere, and then they have to stay there for, I don't know, an hour, hour and a half. They listen as people who support each candidate give a little speech, and then they vote, oftentimes on a little slip of paper. They write it down, fold it up, put it in the basket. And so it takes a little more effort than certainly voting by mail or any of the stuff that people do in general elections now. What does that mean? Does that mean more of Ron DeSantis' people come out, or does that mean the people who now say they're for Trump don't come out? I don't know. Trump's support is pretty loyal in Iowa. So there's two real questions here. There's the question is, who wins the non-Trump race?
Right.
And then, could anybody actually beat Trump? And there are people who are thinking that something like that could happen, that a candidate could actually beat Trump in Iowa, which would change everything. The whole race just changes immediately at that point if Trump actually loses a primary. On the other hand, if he wins, as the polls suggest, a lot of people are going to be thinking it's pretty much over.
He didn't win the Iowa caucus in
No, he
2016, right? So could he potentially narrowly lose in Iowa and we still see his sort of enduring lead continue through the rest of the early states?
It's possible. But I mean, we're just in such a different scenario here with him being a former president. And this would be just an enormous blow to his aura as a former president for him to lose. And, you know, in Iowa in 2016, Ted Cruz won. And by the way, Ted Cruz was not the most personable, likable candidate in the world. That's giving,
so I've heard.
that's giving DeSantis hope in Iowa. But that was a kind of a different thing. Here, Haley is actually quite strong in New Hampshire right now. She's doing reasonably well in Iowa, but really strong in New Hampshire. Trump came and just blew everybody away in New Hampshire in 2016, and then he blew everybody away in South Carolina. People I talked to in South Carolina says there is no way in the world Nikki Haley, the former governor, beats Donald Trump. I respect what they're saying, and they're probably right. The only thing I would say is if something really surprising happens in the earlier primaries in Iowa or New Hampshire, people in South Carolina are watching what's going on. They know what's happening. People in New Hampshire know what's going on in Iowa. So it's kind of a cumulative thing. And that's why if Trump wins decisively in Iowa, I think a lot of people would say it's it. But if he loses, wow, it's just wide open.
And finally, you wrote a column that got quite a bit of attention this past week about this observation that the media and Democrats appear to be realizing that Donald Trump could actually become president again and have sort of sent out the bat signal to warn the public that this time they really mean it, that Trump is dangerous.
There is this weird thing. Is there a bat signal? I mean, because it's really odd.
We're not invited to the group chat, I
No,
guess.
we didn't get the bat signal. Because there were a bunch of articles that appear about the same time. The Washington Post publishes this piece by Robert Kagan, who was a well-known writer around Washington over many years, saying that Trump would be a dictator and the United States is headed toward dictatorship if Trump is elected. And about the same time, The Atlantic releases a special issue in which 24 articles, count them, 24, give us dire warnings of what Trump is going to do. The New York Times publishes a story, Trump is going to do this. And it all seems to come like at the same time. And you think, wow, is there a central assignment desk somewhere? I don't think there is. I think that groupthink explains what's happening more than that. But clearly something went off. And I think what happened was that there were a number of polls that showed Trump beating Joe Biden nationally. And then what really blew a lot of minds is there was a poll by the New York Times that showed Trump beating Biden in 5 out of 6 key swing states. And they're the kind of states that if you win those states, you're going to be president. And so I think they really freaked out then. If you go back to December of 2015, same time, December 2015, Trump was leading in the Republican race. A lot of Republicans were thinking he might be able to win, but the general public and the liberal press was kind of viewing this as kind of a freak show on the Republican side. And they thought, well, even if Trump could win the nomination, of course, Hillary Clinton would defeat Trump in a general election. I mean, there's no danger that he would actually become president. So there wasn't that degree of worry. Now you see Trump 10 miles ahead in the Republican race, and you see polls showing Trump beating Biden. I think you put those together, and that accounts for this major nervous breakdown we've seen in the liberal world in the past week or two.
Well, Byron, thank you so much for being here today.
You.
You can get more writing from Byron by signing up for his newsletter, Byron York's Daily Memo, at washingtonexaminer.com.